Welcome to the Love of Gaming Podcast. My name is Aaron, and joining me virtually, I got Josh. Josh, how you doing today?
Oh man, it has been one heck of a summer so far. How you doing?
I'm doing very good. This is probably one of the last podcasts I'm going to be recording before my wife gives birth. We might get one more in. And as you know, I think I had mentioned it in an earlier episode, but we're going to go to a bi-weekly release schedule for a little while as I get settled in with baby number 2.
It's already been quite a summer. I know, I've been traveling a bit and having a bit of fun, and you've been, enjoying the time with your wife as she grows more and more pregnant.
Yes. Enjoying our last days, being with our only child. Soon it'll be 2 children, and that life will change forever. So,
I like having 2 kids. It's been a lot of fun for me. I hope you enjoy it as well.
Oh, I'm sure I will. I'm sure I'll enjoy it for many years to come. Interestingly enough, we were going to think of a topic for today, but today, you know what? We said let's do something simple. Josh just came back from vacation. I got nothing, so we're gonna do let's make a one shot, because that's the best way to sort of wing our way through an episode. And today's topic is going to be, or the prompt for today is going to be, Zombies Ate My Neighbors, which it was a famous Super Nintendo video game if you played it. But
yep, my wife was a big fan, loves that game, and I thought it was a hilarious title, and so I put it in the list. And I think we should obviously make a little one shot out of this.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Okay. So as far as a hook goes, normally what we do is I throw something out, you throw something out, we sort of come where in the middle. The thought that I had was that the players are tasked with investigating that somebody has said that zombies have come and have replaced one of their neighbors. As in, you've got a small little neighborhood or a small town or something like that, and people are afraid that zombies have come and they've eaten the neighbors and stolen their faces.
So you got zombies living as like Mr. and Mrs. Smith in the neighborhood.
I think it's hilarious.
It's a funny concept right there. I was trying to think of a hook right there as you were giving your hook. I was thinking perhaps the players in a bout of revenge have summoned zombies on accident, and they've begun consuming people in the neighborhood.
Ooh, well, like you could do a whole Invasion of the Body Snatchers thing, and I think maybe we could, that they're afraid that zombies are coming in and taking over the neighborhood, stealing the people there.
Your hook is definitely more of an intrigue game. So when I thought of this title, I was thinking like some just straight up horror title, turns into Zombieland real quick. But yours has a little bit more intrigue to it, where you can slow walk the horror aspect for a while as the players sort of play, Inquisitor within the neighborhood.
But you could still throw the whole "this has been summoned" thing, and that's the second half, right? So you get the whole intrigue, like, are these actual zombies? They look normal. They're doing normal things. There's something a little off about everything. And then you find out that, yes, these are all zombies, but where are they coming from? And then it turns out that there's, maybe like a underground, like a buried evil church that was swallowed by the ground. And inside is a necromancer who is raising zombies to take over the neighborhood. And so there you go. You've got your summoning zombies that are eating all the neighbors. You've got intrigue at the beginning. You've got a twist that it's being summoned. And then you follow it up with a big old fight in a sunken church against a necromancer. Man, we got this whole thing done.
Boom. Okay, so zombies have been summoned and are replacing your neighbors one by one, and you need to figure out what is going on.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it could be your neighbors. You could be You know,
I like it better as your neighbors. Like this is one where like if you were well, so obviously you could play your one shots where you're going to do them as a side story or you're going to introduce characters. This is one where you could just introduce very mundane people who
Mhm.
live in a town or live in a subdivision, and now you're dealing with, zombies. So like that's a great little kind of fun, easy to roll up some people for this, and give everyone these kind of goofy, kind of fun characters that are totally off the cuff. But again, if you were going to do this um as like an adventuring party doing like a side one shot with their existing characters or something, then you probably do this where they come upon a town where somebody pleads with them saying,
I think zombies are stealing all of my neighbors.
I think my neighbors are being eaten by zombies and being replaced by them.
And you go in and it's like, Pleasantville.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and I think both those are fantastic. I think in either case, populating the neighborhood with a couple of NPCs uh, that are, unique or memorable would be really helpful. I think, hitting some of those genre tropes would be great. Have you ever seen The Burbs?
No.
Okay. It's a classic suburban movie where each of the neighbors is there are tropes. You've got like the cheerleader, you got the mad scientist, you've got the dad who cares about his lawn, the old people, and you can sort of play with those ideas and create some really fancy, like just mundane but tropey characters. I think it'd be really funny in like say a fantasy setting to have like the local cheerleader at one house with the obnoxious dad, and you've got like a bunch of old people living across the street who don't want anybody on their lawn, but maybe they're like they look normal because they're elves and they're like just 500 years old and they just hate everybody walking over their lawn because they're old.
A lot of interesting creative NPCs. I would probably even try to limit the setting. So again, we kind of give you two ways to set up the setting, but I'd almost limit to like a city block, like limit to a single block, or even
Cul-de-sac.
cul-de-sac's great, but a very small like a very small place where you could create a lot of unique NPCs.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the whole, know your players, know what they're looking for. The concept can be expanded, but you don't want to go too far. You want to keep it tight. This is supposed to be a one shot, So I'd say limit your quirky neighbors to maybe at a minimum 4.
Yeah, I mean, again, you don't want to bog down players in talking to all of them, but I'd probably say, start with 4 is a good number because again, you want a limited number of people, and you're gonna probably have them interact with. Are we gonna say that the zombies are somewhat sentient, so you can interact with them, and they also have their own quirks and idiosyncrasies?
I think that's a great way to do it. Is that you've got if you create a couple of quirky neighbors, right, and they've got their things, and then you don't even have to go so far as to be like, I know who the zombies are beforehand. You can just roll like this is a zombie and maybe create like a little table of like, here's a quirk that a zombie will have. So you roll, is that person a zombie? Yes. Okay, what quirk do they have? And so they're acting as the neighbor you had before. They are the guy that works in his car every day. He's standing out in front of his house, shirtless. He's, working on his chariot. He's like, "Yeah, man, I got this whole thing. I'm just putting in new springs, and I'm gonna get these horses up. Whoa, yeah."
The best thing too is that you have to have the zombies have a very defined routine that they follow every day. And so
Mhm.
if he says I have to replace the springs and put this thing up
Every
every
day.
day, I have to replace the springs and put this thing.
Mhm. And yeah, and then you've got like the old people. They're watering their lawn every morning, every morning. But that could just be them. You don't know. They're just weird people. And so you'd be stuck in this sort of little time loop until you figure it out. And maybe um, do we have the necromancer be one of the neighbors?
He has to be one of the neighbors, and
It has to be.
we have to have Tim the necromancer.
Yeah. And like why has Tim the necromancer turned his neighbors into zombies?
Well, clearly because one of the neighbors has not been upkeeping his lawn.
Oh my God, this is an HOA. I hate it.
One of the necromancers says one of the neighbors has not been upkeeping his lawn, so he thought he would summon some zombies to replace those neighbors,
And it got out of
and it
hand
got out of hand.
like HOAs always do. Man, zombies ate my neighbors turned into necromancers are the HOA. I don't like it.
It's got to be something petty. If you're going to have one of the
Oh,
neighbors be
oh yeah.
if you're gonna have one of the neighbors be the necromancer, it's got to be something petty. And even if it isn't a neighbor that's necromancer, like why would you start replacing people? It's got to be
Mhm.
something super duper petty. Maybe it's like it couldn't even be the neighbor. It might be like some like the garbage man or the mailman
Oh
or
yeah.
something.
Like Tim the necromancer is mad at Daphne the cheerleader because she leaves the trash out after it's been picked up. And like, why doesn't she just bring it in? She could just bring the can in. No, she's leaving it on the street.
So Tim concocted a whole plan to replace everyone with zombies, and they would do exactly what he wants them to do, making this part of his route that much easier.
Oh my God, that's so terrible. I hate it. Okay, cool. So um so you're the player, so how does this game play out? Right? Um we start with like there has to be some sort of uh event. Like if the players are approached by somebody and say, "Hey, I think zombies are eating my neighbors," um, well, what tipped you off?
So again,
Uh,
so if you're a neighbor, let's say you're a neighbor in the place, obviously you have to have some interactions that start making things seem weird. What I would probably say is that you know you maybe you witness something that's a little hinky, like in the
yeah.
dead of night, and you're like, man, that's so weird. And so you go over and start exploring, start asking questions like, hey, hey, I thought I saw something happen. It's terrifying. You can even like be as blatant as like you see somebody like assault, you know, Dave down the street, like through his window and start biting him. And you call the police and the police come and they clear everything up and nothing's wrong. And, the neighborhood's in a commotion that night, but everything's fine. And the next morning, there's Dave doing weird stuff. So maybe you go talk to Dave. And then that's where kind of the loop starts happening, where you're
Mhm.
like, what's going on, and blah blah blah. And when what you sort of do is because you're a neighbor, well, you're a nosy neighbor perhaps, and now you start looking in different things, and you start witnessing more people being eaten by zombies, or maybe you start locating like remains of the other people that were there, and like which tips you off, like, wait, what happened here? Like this is
Oh yeah, but you have to remember this is that suburban. Everybody is so paranoid sort of thing. So um, that your introduction is yes, something has happened. There was a scream, there was a crash. You think you see somebody being eaten. It turns out it was nothing. Rob was just eating ribs, or what are you talking about? I'm just having my I don't know. I dropped some weights, whatever it is. Um, and then you have to start you know, the puzzle is talking to the neighbors. You have to have, standard mundane conversations with these people so they don't get suspicious and come after you.
Yeah.
And sneaking around trying to find evidence that these are zombies. Where do they stash the bodies? Is there a trail of blood?
Yeah, and if you're a group passing by, I think it's even easier. Like, you stop at the local tavern, you're at the bar, you're wherever you're commiserating and making rest for the night, and somebody's there, and he's with somebody else from the same neighborhood, drinking with them. He's like, I think Dave's a zombie.
But yeah, it's just that you go in there and they're drinking ale and they're having merry, and then you've got the ones that may have been turned, and they're all just drinking water.
It works even better if it's like a local bar right down the street, and they're all there. I don't want to alarm you, but I think Dave's a zombie. I saw him get eaten the other day, and he's still.
And they're all just sitting there, and they're like, "I would like a steak, rare." You're like, yeah, because that's delicious.
I'd like a steak. Could you just bring me the steak uncooked?
But I thought Daphne was a vegetarian. Yeah, no, she's eating steak. I don't know what's going on. It's just like,
and they eat it in the most savage, gruesome way. Like, maybe she's done with that. So
yeah, it could just be a weird thing. She's having cravings. And so that's the puzzle, is you've got to find who among the neighbors actually is a zombie and where did it come from.
Yes. So that's your hook into the whole situation there. That's sort of how you would bring it up. It's a little bit harder as passerbyers because you need to make sure that your players are willing to engage with the situation. This one's a little bit different in that regard. And maybe you need to have the guy perhaps plead with your players that they need to help. They need to do something, like he's next.
I mean, if zombies take over this town, it'll spill out into the neighborhood. We've got to do something. We've got to stop the stem of undeath from taking over.
Yes.
Could be any number of things. Yeah.
So again, you have to give them a real call to action as the passerbyers. I think that, again, this is designed to be a one shot. Your players should have some expectation going in that they're going to engage with whatever you give them. Yeah. And so when we talk about the puzzles or the what you do, the puzzle is sort of figuring out what the heck is going on in the neighborhood. Who's been turned? Who hasn't been turned? Who's doing the turning? And why is it happening to such an isolated group? And then trying to piece together like what that is. Like, again, the mystery doesn't need to be super involved. Again, this is a one shot, so you're thinking 1 to 2 nights potentially of fun. But the idea is to try to figure out who done it, which one's not the one, and every night a new zombie appears. So, what do you put in for the setback in this?
Well, I'm saying that you find out that Tim the Necromancer was the one that summoned the zombies, and now that he knows that you're onto him, he has retreated into his sunken cathedral underneath the cul-de-sac and is about ready to summon an army of undead because
he's done with replacing people one at a time. He's replacing the whole damn city. Okay.
Yeah, and everybody, including the players, because they figured him out and they're going to ruin everything.
He would have gotten away for it too. It wasn't for those meddling players. So that's that. There's the you lose sight of the actual villain at hand, and the climax is going to be a big brawl / fight. This is when the zombies turn from we're just doing our neighborly thing and we're just being friendly to neighbors, to, okay, guess what? We're on to you. The necromancer has called, and now you're fighting through the hordes of zombies that are your neighbors. So, and you're working your way to Tim the necromancer, in which ultimately you will find him in his cathedral and vanquish him, which is, of course, our resolution. Now, so resolution here is you can't get back the other neighbors because they're dead.
Yeah. No, the resolution is that as soon as, you come up and you've cleared out all of the neighbors, somebody has come in and instituted an HOA where they don't want necromancers in the neighborhood.
The HOA has been updated for no more necromancers in the neighborhood. That's the resolution of the game.
Also, you have to take your trash cans in right out. You can't leave them out. Make sure all those edges on your lawn need to be cleaned up.
Yeah, I would go full cinematic here right after you vanquish Tim the necromancer, who's my ultimate plan for fixing the HOA. No, and he goes down, and then you're at the next board meeting for people who have come in. You've brought in some new neighbors, some existing neighbors who maybe didn't get eaten or replaced, and they're there, and you have the director of the HOA saying, "Okay, we're going to ratify that no more necromancers will be allowed to be part of this, township. All in favor? Aye." And yeah, also, we're going to, and then you end on another quirky thing, which is whatever Tim's motivation was, will also be adopted as part of the HOA.
If you really want to lean into having a little bit of fun with this, so the HOA has gotten that much worse. They're even more draconian. They're making all these different rules. They're complaining about the color of your house and the shape of your mailbox and all that stuff. And you got to replace it, or there will be fines levied against you. And the players can be sitting there and seeing all these things happen. You reach into your bag to slowly stroke Tim's necromancy book that you kept.
Okay, so you don't do the necromancy book there. So the meeting ends after that, and you're there, and the heads of the HOA at the board goes, you sort of play into the master apprentice here sort of thing, which is like, Tim failed us, but next time. And that's how you get Zombies Ate My Neighbors too.
Oh yes.
And that's how you set up the hook for the future game.
There goes the neighborhood. No.
That's how you resolve the future game. There's your hook into the next one. So the whole HOA board is actually necromancers, and although they've ratified no more necromancers in the neighborhood, they're up to no good.
Oh, they're grandfathered in,
yeah,
because they're all liches. I love it. Okay, so are we going to need maps?
Yeah, you're going to need definitely a neighborhood map or the cul-de-sac map. You are going to want probably a detailed map of your necromancer's house, and you're going to want a detailed map from his house that leads into your cathedral. So, that's sort of your mini dungeon for everything here. Obviously, when you've finally pulled everything back, that's where all the fighting is going to go down, and that's where you're gonna have your brouhaha.
Mm-hmm. Excellent.
So I think that those are the only maps you need. What do you think? Do you think we need something else?
No, I think even as far as the neighborhood / cul-de-sac map, I don't think it needs to be super detailed. It's not like you're not going to be moving people around on it. There's not going to be a fight on it. It doesn't need to be to scale. It just needs to show
generally it's just the representation of where the houses are, and so you have a reference point to where you might be standing, and if you're going to throw somebody else out there on the map, you can say oh, you hear a noise coming from over here. So it gives you points of intrigue to go investigate and talk about.
And that sort of leads into the whole or we talk about handouts, I think like a quick little blurb on each one of the neighborhoods, here's a listing of your neighbors and just like
Yes.
some facts about them so that they can go and interview these people and do a little investigation. So, um, like a
Yeah.
paragraph in each neighbor.
Hmm. So yeah, I think that with the paragraph in each neighbor, that's super helpful. Anyways, you're gonna want that because if you're, let's say you're playing the pre-gen characters, your players have some experience with all their neighbors, so they
Mhm.
should know something about who they are and what they are, and also you can sort of play off of the information that the players know versus how they're acting now, which helps give them that kind of weird sense of like something funky is going on. Um,
Okay.
and then finally, we talk mobs and bosses. So obviously, we have Tim the Necromancer, and we have the zombies. Those are going to be your mobs and bosses. I would not go too crazy in making specialized zombies for each one of them. Go with something pretty generic.
Mhm.
Recognize the system you're playing in and the power level of your players. This is very important because zombies tend to be extremely tanky. And if you've listened to any of our podcasts ever before, you will know that combat takes a notoriously long time, and fighting zombies is boring. Okay.
I think the key thing to remember here is that when you encounter zombies in a tomb of the great undeath, these are warrior zombies. These were big buff fighters before they died. No, we don't have those in the neighborhood. We have dad bod zombies. We've got, Cheryl who is spending way too much time with her cats zombies. These are not fighters. Okay. Think of these as like, townspeople NPCs that are now dead.
Yes. Also, your zombies have to be scramblers. They can't be shamblers. Sorry. So they have to be scramblers in this world.
No. Okay. Yeah, they do. Because they gotta have like
They have
the
full dexterity. The
necromancy.
zombies that we're talking about here have full dexterity, and they need to be capable of. This is the problem with shambler zombies. Okay, shambler zombies only work if you have a butt ton of them. Okay, you have to.
And they don't hide. You walk into a place, there's a bunch of people like their feet is like hanging off and they can only move by like dragging it and their arms never extend and they've got a glassy look and they're drooling on themselves. Yeah, that's a zombie. Or, they're at the DMV. But either way, that's not going to be like that one's a zombie. You need to have something that's able to move around, looks like it's an actual functional person. Um, yeah, the necromantic magic is sort of holding them up and making them go through their daily routines.
I'm not saying you can't have one shambling zombie. Okay, maybe that's the reveal that gets you into the climax somewhere along the way. Like you run into the shambling zombie, and it's a terrifying experience. You're like, oh my god, it was Tim all along. I knew it. He's got zombies in his house, and then all the rest of them have to be scrambler zombies.
Yeah, if your players aren't picking up on the clues, if they are like, drag, they can't find stuff, they don't know what they're doing, then have them just walk into a garage and Tim has just killed a dude and is resurrecting him as a zombie. And yeah,
Exactly.
and so that he's a shambler because he hasn't like been given the full magic yet. And then Tim runs off and you've got to deal with the shambler.
Okay. I
Sounds great.
I like it.
Yeah. So we took a classic, what, 35, 40-year old. Uh, it's got to be 35. Got to be in the 30s. Super Nintendo game, and we turned it into a nice little one shot here.
Yeah, no, this is a perfect little one shot here. I was expecting it to be something short and sweet, and it turned into something really fun and quirky. So, which is what I think most one shots tend to have to be a little fun and a little quirky.
Yeah. And you could lean into the horror aspect of this. It could be,
Well,
dark and gritty and
the bait
scary.
and switch is once you realize what's going on, that's when you can turn it into a horror game. Like, so if you really want to change it, now it's a zombie survival game.
Yeah.
Okay. You could very easily run that after the setback. Tim has realized what's going on. Now it's zombie survival. And we even talk about that sort of in our climax. You're talking about more of like the dad bod zombie, more like the very mundane type zombies, similar skill set to, I would say, the players. But at the same time, if you want to lean to the horror aspect, you can make them a little bit stronger and a lot more voluminous. You could have just more show up that aren't part of the neighborhood. Obviously, you're dealing with a necromancer here. So that horror aspect then makes things much more scary. And if you're going to lean into the horror part of it, then what I would probably say is do a little bit more prep work on the maps and make the detail out the cul-de-sac a little bit more. That's probably what I would say to make it more threatening, that when you realize the situation you're in, getting back to Tim's house is in and of itself a difficult thing to do.
Yeah. And then, inside Tim's house, if you're going to go that way, if your players are having a good time and you want to stretch this out to a couple of sessions, inside Tim's house, you could play it up a lot like the opening house from Curse of Strahd, the Hell House or whatever it's called. It's got multiple levels. It's got different things that are going on, traps and mummies and undeath and stuff like that. And you're like, yeah, why didn't anybody figure this out? But you could throw that in as Tim's house, leading to the, big cathedral underneath. And that could be, instead of it being like a quick one-shots, where you just over in a couple of hours, this could turn into like a full-on, not like a massive campaign, but like a module, like a couple of sessions, and you could have a lot of fun with this.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that.
So I think this has a lot of potential for not just being a short one, but you could expand on it and make it something not so one-shotty.
Yeah, no, again, this is all good options and additional ways that you can sort of play the end of all this. So do you have anything else you want to add to this one?
No, I think we took this pretty far.
Okay. Yes, we did take it pretty far. So Zombies Ate Our Neighbors, that's the one shot that we made. If you have your thoughts on the Let's Make a One Shot, let us know. levelupyourgamingpodcast@gmail.com or facebook.com/levelupyourgaming. Also, the podcast is on YouTube, so smash the like button there. Otherwise, subscribe to the podcast to your favorite podcast site, review it, recommend it to a friend, all those good things. And that's going to wrap us up for the weekend, or the week. So for Josh, I'm Aaron. Have a good week, everyone.
Bye.